Today, our theme will be coding. Indeed, it is now the second year that coding is being formally taught at FASTNY. An exciting endeavor, a fun and thought-provoking experience, we would like to share a little more about coding with our FASTNY community. Joining us today to speak about the importance of coding and now how they use it in their lives, Mrs. Irum Kahn and Mr. Ali Milan Nekmouche.
Mrs. Kahn discovered coding through her experience as a financial and economic analyst. She also had a strong experience with working with students and teaching coding. Since last year, Mrs. Kahn had been working with all students from kindergarten through 5th grade, teaching them coding and robotics with the support of their teachers. All students received 12 sessions of coding and or robotics on average per year.
Mr. Nekmouche is a managing director at 2 Sigma Investments. 2 Sigma is a data and technology-driven investment manager managing funds for financial institutions as well as pension and retirement funds around the world. Mr. Nekmouche leads a few teams who build models to predict the direction of the stock market using a lot of data and computer code. To teach a machine computer to use a lot of data, information, Mr. Nekmouche and his team all need to know how to program and code in all sorts of computer languages. Mr. Nekmouche fell in love with computer programming in his early university years and is very excited to participate in helping kids of today learn how to code. Mr. Nekmouche is also a father at FASTNY.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kahn and Mr. Nekmouche, for being with us today. Can you please tell us more about how you discovered coding and why you became interested in it?
So when I used to work as an analyst, boys and girls, we would often use financial formulas that were actually developed by firms like Mr. Nekmouche. And as an analyst, I would use them, and I was always wonder how people put them together. And I always thought it was so cool to have the solutions available to solve the problems with the computers doing all the computing, and we would just apply them on the data that we had to find the results that we needed to get. So that is kind of how I became introduced to coding.
So first, thank you so much, FASTNY News, for having me in this super fun session to talk about something I'm very passionate about and that I think all kids should be passionate about. I first came to interact with computers when I was a kid, mostly through gaming, with gaming consoles. In our time and my time, the gaming consoles were called Commodores or Ataris or whatnot, and they were very rudimentary machines that solved almost very basic problems at the time. And I got exposed to coding through those machines at the time to just write my own little game and do fun things with it. But I really fell in love with coding in my very first year of university when my teacher taught me really at the time that I could solve repeatable processes, do the same thing, do one thing that needs to be done many times better than what a human could by using a machine. And that very thought process to me, the fact that a machine can do something very well, repeatedly and fast, was tremendously insightful and powerful, and I decided to take that as one of my graduate courses.
Qu'est-ce le coding pour vous? What is coding to you?
So coding to me is really a way to solve problems, because I think that humans are so good at logical thinking and analyzing things, and once they've done that, you can actually write code to solve that problem, and then let the computer do the computations, run that data, and you don't need to do it over and over again. So the computer is really good at repeating something over and over again, and everybody can, and there can be different people who can utilize that code or that computer program that has been written once. So to me, that is really the beauty of coding, getting the computer to do the non-brainy work, and for humans and you guys to do the logical thinking part of it.
That's exactly right. I feel very similarly here in that a computer can help you answer questions quicker than what you would otherwise do. If you need a lot of information to synthesize a lot of information to answer a question, in the old days you'd have these many pages of like notebooks and you'd write these large formulas and whatnot. Today, computer coding can allow you to synthesize information quickly. And so for me, coding is on one hand a tool to answer questions. It's also a tool to do useful things, to make a machine do useful things so that you can do more useful things. And once you teach a machine to actually operate at that level, it helps you sort of to direct the machine towards better ways. And it's a very fun problem actually to learn how to teach a machine to think like a human or to operate like a human. And nowadays you're seeing a whole bunch of other applications of coding, just like when you think of self-driving cars or when you think of automated homes. When you come in and the lights turn on, there's a computer out there that sort of sees the sensing of somebody coming into the door and the light comes on. Somebody coded that, somebody thought about doing that. And that's obviously useful. It's useful for us, but it's also useful for society. It helps us be more efficient, use less energy, do things in a better way.
So just to add to that, Kenza, boys and girls, we have been doing things, we've been using blocks like events, we've been using other concepts like conditionals. Can you give me an example of a conditional that you can use, based on what Mr. Nekmouche talked about? When somebody walks into their house, how would you use a conditional to code, to generate a little bit of code that would get the light to turn on? Go ahead.
For a conditional, you can do when if the door opens, turn the lights on.
Perfect.
That's excellent.
What does coding teach?
So to me, it really teaches, and I think I'm repeating myself here, but I think it's also worth repeating. It really teaches problem solving. And I feel that everybody needs it. Students need it, professionals need it, and especially when you guys enter the workforce, when your generation, by the time it makes it to the workforce, the technology for everything will be a lot more advanced. And you'll be using a lot more technology than I did, when I started working. And for you to be intelligent users of that technology, it is important that you know how to code now, because then you know what actually feeds into the technology, how it works, and then be able to use it more effectively.
I totally agree with Ms. Khan here. On one hand, it helps you get ready for using the tools of the future. In some ways, conversing with a machine is something that humans do more often nowadays than you do conversing with other humans. In fact, you're on your iPads, you're on your phones, and you're interacting with these machines all the time. So learning how to make these tools that are around us productive for your benefit, for your efficiency, I think to me is a clear differentiator for your future, that it helps you leverage the available technology to become more efficient. Problem solving is another thing that I think it teaches, in that in order to become a good analytical thinker, coding helps you think through through how do you teach a system to make conditional decisions. And Ms. Khan used the example of if this then that. It seems very simple, but you have to have a lot of pieces to work together. You have to have a sensor that feels that the door is open. You have to have something else that tells the machine the lights to turn on. Just that very easy example we used means that you have a deep understanding of how to make the machine interact with the actual physical world, and that's very powerful.
Why teach everyone to code?
Okay, so I think everyone needs to, all you students need to learn to code, because, as we talked about it, it really teaches you skills, in addition to teaching you how to develop code and what are the concepts that go behind code. It teaches you other skills. It teaches you skills of problem solving. It teaches you logical thinking skills. It teaches you how to communicate. And because when you're writing code, we often talk about a word. Does anyone know my favorite word in coding?
Efficiency.
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorites too.
So, and it teaches you how to be efficient when you're working. It teaches you how to communicate clearly. And that's something everybody needs to know how to learn. You guys need to use that. Do you use problem solving or efficiency or logical thinking in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I use it like at school with you, and when the weekend when I play on my iPad or things like that, I need to code it and everything to like learn, like for him like to put in Minecraft, like put a block there, in like I don't know, shoe with the gun or something like that. So I use it really a lot of I use coding, and my dad said it's like the future. So I'm really happy to do coding in class.
So I definitely agree with your dad quite a bit. One thing I'll say to add here around why teach everyone coding is ultimately it's also fun. It really is. And so my daughters and I, both Ida and Mia, have had experience coding and using Scratch or using Python now with Mia. But the key factor that they've really understood by just interacting that is that it was fun for us, for me and them, to be playing really around this machine and making it do fun things. So making a game, making a little unicorn move across a screen, solving a puzzle, or in the case of Mia lately, creating a game that helped her sort of like let the machine ask questions of like the players, and she felt that was useful. So ultimately, it's also really fun, and through that fun, you're learning all the life skills that Ms. Khan was pointing to.
And if I could just add to that, that's something I tell people. They ask me, how do you like your job? I said, it's the best job in the world. I play all day and I teach, and I love both those things.
Exactly.
Why do you think it is important that coding is a part of regular school curriculum compared to being taught as an after-school activity?
It's a great question.
I think it's important to learn it in school because some of you who might be more technologically inclined would perhaps take an after-school club, but if your interest does not lie in it, you would never be exposed to it. So for example, my son loves to code. So any robotics club he can find, he will sign up for that. But for my daughter, if I did not work with her and if the school did not work with her to, as part of the curriculum to code, she would never have learned to code and she would have missed out on such an enriching experience. So I think it's very important to provide it to all our students. Some of our students will become technology specialists and software engineers, and that's great for them. And then there will be other students who will not, but they will still be using that technology, and they will still be using the life skills that it teaches them.
The one thing I'll add to this is it's, as we said earlier, coding is part of how you solve a problem, and so it's a tool to do something better. And so if you look at your curriculum and your classes, coding as an independent class is useful because yes, you're going to learn to code better and become perhaps a software engineer. But if you learn it as a tool to solve other problems, then it can impact your math classes, it can impact your biology and other science classes where you actually need coding to answer some questions as well. And so it makes you more efficient, as we were saying earlier, in those other applications. So on one hand, we need to do the things that Ms. Khan has developed in her curriculum, be it just operating with machines. But once you have those basic skills of coding, then applying it to another field is when you really are becoming even more efficient in applying programming.
And just to add to that, there's a teacher, a second grade teacher actually approached me at the end of the year, and she said that there was one student who was actually struggling in maths when they started the year, And then we started coding in the middle of the year. And somehow something just clicked for him, and math started making sense to him. And he got so much better that he was on track. He passed just fine with the rest of his grade in math. So
That's
it sometimes teaches you that, it's the same type of skills that you use. You use logic, you use how to solve problems.
How do you see us coding in our future, be it through our professional or private lives?
How do you see, okay. I think in the future, and I think Ms. Khan and I will have probably very similar opinions here, but I think if you look at what coding looked like 20 years ago versus what it looks like today, it's very different. 20 years ago, we thought we were working on making machines do very, as Ms. Khan put it, non-brainy tasks. So things that could be repeatable and just very easy really to do. And they were very physical in nature. If this, do that. And that was 20 years ago. Today, computers are now a tool for interpretation. They're taking information and they're making decisions. And so in the future, I think you guys will be participating in a world to teach computers to interpret information better so that humans can do even more value-added things. Decisions about what is the best way to have an ecological system within a town, and so when should you pick up the garbage? At which time should you be turning off the lights? All these decisions that seem to be very high level, they're actually quite important for the broader society. And teaching a computer to do that means that the humans that are now doing all of these things can be deployed to more value-added tasks. And so it'll be about, on one hand, teaching the computer to do higher order things, interpreting information, and on the other, us as humans learning how to leverage that power to affect the world in better ways.
Now we have coding classes that we enjoy very much.
Nice to know.
Do you think that even outside of our coding classes, we still use programming in our daily lives?
Okay, so let me ask you guys that question. Do you think you use it? Do you think you use any kind of problem solving?
Yes, because maybe like you're on your computer and you want to plan a game, and maybe there's something says programming and it's a bit hard. Coding will help you do it better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Understand?
Every morning and every night when you get ready to go to school or to go to bed or do whatever you're doing, you have a series of steps you're doing. They're very specific and usually you repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coding.
That's sequencing and looping. Perfect.
I use it like probably every day, but I know that I know that I don't know that I use it, but like I can it's so important coding, I use it without knowing it, because it's like everything has coding in it, like in the computer, in the headphones, in the everything. There's like a bit of coding in everything.
True.
So it's really important. What are the benefits of hands-on STEM night on learning?
So this is the way I look at it. In the classroom, you learn about the laws of physics. You learn about the scientific method. You learn about other scientific concepts. But you learn them, you understand them, or you think you understand them. But then when you actually sit down with some materials, and build something, you learn a lot more about gravity. Like the other day, we were trying to build a gingerbread house, and the sloping roof of the house kept falling down. And that was gravity in action, perfect example. So, so you think you know something, but then when you really work with it and you put it together and then it doesn't work and you fix it, there is just so much more that you learn about that concept, and that concept actually makes sense to you. You feel the concept. So, that is why it's, I love STEM learning. It's one of my hobbies. It's a passion for me, and I think it's amazing how much you can learn by just working with your hands.
I totally agree. I think, and when I was pointing earlier to why I got into programming, it was very much because it helped me solve a problem that I really needed to solve at the time. I felt like it was an empowering tool. So generally, any sort of applied science, when you apply science to a specific problem, you learn not only how to apply that science and sort of use it for that use case, but you're also starting to connect different parts of your brain to solve problems even more creatively. And if you want to become a lawyer down the road, or if you want to become a doctor, or if you want to become anything, a fireman, to be honest with you, I believe that coding will help you, or science, STEM, applied STEM will help you become a better doctor, a better dentist, a better lawyer, because you will be thinking in ways that are more analytical and more process driven. And so in some ways, applied learning gives you the opportunity to sort of connect areas of your brains that are generally not always interconnected.
Again, Mrs. Kahn and Mr. Nekmouche, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for sharing your thoughts on coding. We are also very pleased to announce that our first STEM nights, called J'aime les STEM, will take place on January 25th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for 5th grade, and on February 12th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for 4th grade.
Our Fast News team will do its best to record testimonials on those nights, as being field reporters is also something we enjoy very much. Read more about the J'aime les STEM nights in the Fast Times. 4th and 5th grade parents will also receive a formal invitation through email.
To wrap up our interview, we would like to share a short video illustrating the connection between coding and music. Enjoy!
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.